Okay, so let's see, I've got just after 1:30. Everybody agree? Should we kick this off, and whoever else joins us, that's great. So first of all, welcome to our panel discussion speed chat entitled People Development Through Lean Certification, How Individuals and Organizations Benefit from Lean Certification. In the next hour and a half, we hope that we'll learn some more about how certification fosters and guides the evolution of people's lean learning and thinking and checks their applied continuous improvement skills. And we'll hear from some highly experienced lean leaders we have with us today on how a structured approach to lean human development benefits both people and organizations. Our panelists today are Larry Anderson, Joanne Days, and Jeff Fuchs, all gold or silver certified lean practitioners and members of the Lean Certification Oversight Committee. Each of these individuals has many years of practical experience supporting the development of both lean culture and systems. I am Pat Wardwell, happy to be here today. I'm also a gold certified member of the Oversight Committee, and I'll serve as panel moderator. And I'm also fortunate enough to be having a little bit of support today from Michael Bremer and Norbert Mergeris, who will sort of help us when we get to the breakout session a little bit. So as most of you know, I hope, it's our belief that successful lean organizations understand that the real secret to sustainable improvement programs is the development of people. When we embrace the growth of every employee's lean knowledge and skill set, we enable deeper application of lean concepts, tools, and systems, and we provide a richer pathway forward for both the people and the organization. So during our time together today, we'll start by hearing from the panelists during the moderator-led panel discussion, but we'll follow that with lots of time for you to ask your questions in sort of a breakout format. And I think since we're a small group, we're all going to stay together today in a single group for our Q&A follow-up. So let's get started. Jeff, I'd like to pose the first question to you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And that question is, why is a lean people development strategy important to organizations?
Okay. Well, for an organization, I think putting together a lean people development strategy is as important as putting together an overall people development strategy. The lean certification is something that was designed from the beginning to really focus on developing the problem-solving capabilities of people. So if you kind of were to draw a Venn diagram that overlaps the things that would be of interest in developing the lean capabilities of individuals, and also with looking at the general people development capabilities that an organization is interested in, it turns out that there is an enormous overlap. And that's important because now when you talk about developing lean leaders, this is something that actually benefits the organization by increasing the leverage of all of this lean education and development training. Because at the same time that you're developing a lean capability in your organization, you're also enhancing the capabilities of leaders in general. So I think that's one thing that really jumps out, is because there's such a strong overlap between the skill sets of developing teams of people to identify, plan, execute, and sustain lean improvements to the organization. That overlaps very strongly with the types of general capabilities that you want for leaders to help people all across the organization to grapple with change in general.
So just to kind of a follow-up to that is basically, who in the organization, in your opinion, is really responsible to develop the next lean practitioners and the next lean leaders? You know, is this just something HR should be doing, or what?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that HR certainly gets involved, but as we know, I think from general lean transformation, this is really important, where buy-in and commitment begins at the top, and then transformation begins from the front lines, moving up through the organization. So top down, bottom up. But I think the answer often comes out that, well, senior leaders are responsible for this. And I think that that's true initially when we think back to this transformation model. but I think one thing that's important to recognize is in the design of the lean certification system, you have the bronze, the silver, and the gold certifications, and the silver and the gold actually both have a mentoring component to them. And so it's important for each one to teach one in this whole organizational hierarchy. At every level of the organization, leaders are responsible not only for improving the business at their level of their scope of influence, but also for developing the capabilities of the people in the organization that work for them. So the commitment really begins at the top, but the commitment actually needs to encompass all levels of leadership in the organization. I think if you're going to create a successful transformation that engages everyone in the company.
Excellent.
Can I add to that for a
Yes.
second?
Please do.
So Jeff, you make a good point. You know, it does start with the leadership. It is part of your looking at your strategic business plan. And where I see many gaps of organizations go is HR is a tactical arm, not a strategic arm. And HR truly needs to be part of that strategic arm, because the development and getting the skill sets to where you need to be when you need to be there are vastly important. So as you're taking this lean initiative and really building, is involving the HR along the way so that they're building the systems to continue to develop the people that they're bringing in the organization and what they're looking for.
That's a great point, Joanne. I think for Toyota, for winners of the Shingo Prize, for any organization that is challenging, let's say, for AME's Excellence Award, all of these organizations really have figured out a way to use culture, organizational culture, as a strategic weapon. So, you know, if you end up using technology as a strategic weapon, clearly your engineers are going to be very important. But as you say, you know, HR needs to become a strategic asset. And that's really where all the people development happens, and the culture really is consciously and deliberately developed. I think you're right, absolutely. That really requires that HR becomes that strategic partner. Good point.
Excellent point. Okay, Larry Anderson, maybe I could pose this next question to you. Could you tell us a little bit about the background of the Lean Certification Program, why it was created?
Yes, absolutely, would love to. The leaders of Association for Manufacturing Excellence, what at the time was the Shingo Prize, it's now grown beyond that, and SME, we're looking at the growth of lean activities and other bodies of knowledge like Six Sigma, other things that people were trying to use to improve their organizational effectiveness. And looked at certificates, which are generally indications of knowledge, and certifications, which are more knowledge-based and demonstration-based. And determined, as I looked at the world out there and the number of certificates that were available and so on, that there was great value in having a unified certification process for lean practitioners. Because what they saw was quite a bit of variation in the Six Sigma world, really not much of anything in the lean world. And so the three organizations got together through volunteers, because for the most part, there's a volunteer activity associated with SME, with AME, and even with the assessment process for the Shingo Prize. So those three organizations brought a number of volunteers together, practitioners, and basically said, let's develop a unified certification for lean practitioners so that there will be a standard that can exist, and people will have an opportunity to go into one location and basically get verification, validation of their knowledge and their experience.
So more than just take the exam,
Yes.
I guess is what you're saying.
Yes, there early on was a great deal of conversation, as it turns out, about certificates of knowledge and certification of application. And SME particularly is consistent with certification, which is demonstration of ability to apply knowledge. And so the SME input was very strong. It says, if we're going to go to this effort, let's put it in the context of certification. Let's build it such that people can demonstrate their knowledge through the exam that exists in the, which is the reason why we have portfolios and accomplishment records and so on built into the process that was developed by the three organizations.
Any of our other panelists want to comment or follow up on Larry's little history lesson?
Nope, that's good.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very comprehensive. Thanks, Larry.
All right, so Joanne, this one's for you. When we talk about developing lean employees, what exactly should that mean to an organization?
It's really about building capability. It's about, if you take a look at where you want to go strategically with the company, what do you need the capability of employees to do? And it's not about just giving the employee, the tool. It's, do they understand the concepts? Can they look at the processes that are there and make changes to those processes towards the strategic direction that you need? If you're not enabling all employees to be able to do that, then you can't go as fast as you're potentially capable of being able to do. So it really is about giving people problem-solving capability, identification capability, being able to connect all the different systems to see how can we make this better for the customer, whatever that strategic customer is, whatever the person, the grouping that you're working from, whether or not it's you're making something or providing a service. How do you look forward like that so that you can eliminate all the waste that your systems provide and people can only execute? If you don't improve your systems, people can't get any better either. And people are the only ones that can change systems.
Great. And what are some tangible things that leaders can actually do to contribute to the development of employee lean skills? Can you share some examples of things you've seen leaders do to actually move people forward or contribute to developing stronger, people development systems?
So it's a little bit about, showing people that you're also doing. So there's an element of bringing people along and coaching them, being able to show them and demonstrate that you're using the same things, because if you can just say it and don't demonstrate it, it's really hard for people to believe that that's the direction you want to go. So that's a huge influence, that if you behave that way and show people that you're also doing the same things, people will gladly try and experiment and do all the things to be able to discover. So that's one aspect that's really important. Two, allow them to go experience other places. Go and see it somewhere else. It's really, really hard, especially if you've had many years in an organization, to be able to see something different until you go somewhere else and realize, wow, I never thought about it that way. So giving that ability to go experience and see it somewhere else so that you can have the conversation and bring it back and look at your own systems with new eyes and new perspective.
Good point. Good point. And how have you seen people judge whether or not, they're assessing whether they are actually moving people along on the journey or determining if they're successful actually building individual capabilities of employees?
The best way to understand whether the organization is improving or individuals are improving or measure against a benchmark. That is the best way to do it, because benchmarks are a level. And when you look at the level, it takes off all the other nuances around it and says, look, you could have come a long way, but that benchmark is a line. Either you're here, here, or here. Where are you? So in doing that, taking the certification exam, applying for it, says, how much am I learning? How much am I retaining, right? When you do the AR or you do the portfolio, it's amazing how much an individual learns, is because when you try and articulate it and put it down on paper, that's when you challenge how much of it are you really absorbing? How much can you articulate back to someone else? So things like that, challenging for the Shingo Prize or the Excellence Awards in AME, those things tell an organization whether or not the organization itself is moving forward.
So if we're seeing our people are getting their certifications, if we're challenging and getting positive results from exterior eyes looking at our businesses, if we're hitting our strategic goals through changing of systems and process, I think, is that what you're saying? When I look at the combination of all those things together?
Yep, there is no one that will give you the answer. You need to look at them together and how they're developing. It's a journey, right? And
Yeah.
so everyone on the journey is going to be at a different point. Even within your organization, you're going to be at different points. So how are you moving things forward?
Yeah. Okay, so Jeff, I think this next question comes back to you. All right, Larry sort of opened the door a little bit on this, but maybe you could talk a little bit more about this difference between a lean certificate and the SME lean certification.
Right. So that's a good, very good question. And I think online in a few different platforms, we've had good discussion and pretty good debate on this. And I think, first of all, there's a semantic difference, a certificate versus certification, but I think it really goes much deeper than that. There are many programs out there that are labeled right now as a certification, but I think under the rubric that we've been discussing, that they're more appropriately termed a certificate. And we say that because we're using that term certificate as something that provides some type of tangible token that basically says, you know, I've challenged to a certain knowledge level, and I've acquired that knowledge capability. That's a very significant step forward, I think, in any practitioner's capability development, whether you're talking Lean or Six Sigma. So there are many certificates that acknowledge a person's achievement of that capability to accumulate that knowledge. But that's only one piece, because now you need to be able to take that knowledge and turn it into action. In the case of Lean, to organize teams to identify and fix problems using the tools in the Lean tool belt. And that capability to translate your knowledge into action that gets results is also a very significant challenge. And I would probably say it's the more challenging of the two. That's the term that we've applied to certification. Not only that you've accumulated a certain knowledge about the lean body of knowledge, but you're able to turn that into action that gets results for the organization. And so I think that's a discriminator between the lean certification that we've put together and some other things that are out there that might kind of confuse the term. And what we've done, I think, is very rigorous. As was mentioned before, you know, the portfolio at the bronze level is 3 projects that demonstrate a person's range, their capability to use various appropriate tools, to demonstrate that they've not only successfully made it through one project, but a number of them, and you've taken your best to kind of demonstrate the depth and range of your knowledge. And then, as Larry mentioned with the accomplishment records for silver and gold practitioners, to go a little bit further to explain how it is that your background and the things that you've done align to certain competencies that are necessary of lean practitioners at the silver and the gold levels. So what we've done, I think, is not an easy bar to reach, but that's really, I think, the benefit of something like this. When you stretch yourself, when you challenge yourself to learn more and to apply that and to discover successfully what works for you, to grow your leadership capabilities, organizing teams of people to do meaningful things for the organization, I think that really makes for a very challenging certification, and that's the thing that we've put together.
So Jeff, along those same lines, can you just take us a little further and talk about how that bronze, silver, and gold are differentiated and how they sort of follow that natural, what we would consider, I guess, a natural progression of a lean learner in their journey, if they're going to make this part of their career or a significant part of their career?
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, if you look at other certifications that are out there, a lot of them are designed around a depth of knowledge. So you might have somebody that's green belt, let's say, and they know a certain amount of things. The black belt knows more about some of these more sophisticated tools. I think that's one very good way to kind of arrange a particular body of knowledge. With the lean body of knowledge, we've looked at the scope of the application. So we've looked a little bit more closely at whether or not you're applying your lean knowledge to organize teams at maybe a small team or a single process unit or at a tactical level. This is very good for like Kaizen event leaders and working with frontline employee groups. One layer above that is at the silver level, where you're working as a value stream leader or working across functional boundaries to coordinate among different managers and trying to create better flow along these value streams. And that may require a great deal of reorganization of the company's systems and structures, and working honestly with a great deal of working from a position of not authority, but to really work persuasively with peers across some of these functional groups. At the strategic level, at the gold level, you're talking about somebody that is trying to create those systems of people development, coaching and growing leaders, and also applying their knowledge to transform an organization at the enterprise level. And at each one of these, there is a different skill set. The types of things that you need to know in basic blocking and tackling at the bronze level are a little bit more tools focused. But as you progress up towards that gold level, it's much more organized around the people side, around coaching and putting together teams of teams and systems of systems. And it's a different level of leadership and lean capability. So each one of the levels that we've created, the bronze, silver, and gold, are really designed more around the scope of application inside a typical organization.
Joanne or Larry, anything you want to pop in with them there to supplement?
Yeah, so Jeff, as you continue to say that, which is really true, there's two things that came to my head when you were talking about it. The first part is when we talked about a practitioner. You don't need to have the title of a lean change agent or something like that. You can be a practitioner in any area that you're in any role that you're in. It's whether or not you're taking what you're doing and applying it to change your area, the systems, etc. Right? So thinking that way, I think, is important as well. The second part of that is in regard to the higher up that you go in the learnings, is you're also understanding more around how the principles really connect and what those principles means to the systems that you have and how they interact with them. Because when you're at the bronze level, you understand tools and you understand the tools and you understand a little bit about what the concept means, but understanding what the principle means of how that impacts the systems and the tools and the concepts is really, really important as you look at an organization.
Very good.
Yeah, and I guess just a couple of points. There's words that we're utilizing here that are consistent with the evolution of the Shingo model, which is a foundational element of the certification, and there's some historical perspective to this. So the certification and the Shingo model have evolved over time, and one of the major points of evolution was the concept of sustainability. So it became evident within the Shingo exercises, within the Shingo assessments, that just knowing the tools and applying the tools didn't create a sustainable organization. So there was a growth, an evolution of the Shingo model, which is reflected in the current certification model, which basically starts to look at how we're doing things. As Jeff pointed out, I can know tools and I could implement presumed improvements in an organization at any level, but I could do it in such a way that it is not sustainable. I could actually be less than a good working partner with the people on my team, for instance, and we can make things happen. But the certification model that exists now basically says, okay, if you're going to be sustainable in this, if you're actually going to grow organizations and people, you've got to have some components. You've got to have some principles to base your actions on. You can't just go do lean tools. If you don't understand the tools with some depth, you'll misapply them basically, or you'll use the wrong ones. And then when you do apply lean tools specifically, you've got to do it in a way that reinforces favorable outcomes on a continuing basis for the organization. So as Jeff, Joanne, all of us talk about this concept of principles, systems, and tools, it's embedded in the certification at this point for a very specific reason. And that is to create sustainability, so that when we're done with all of the transformational activities, or when we're done with that transformational activities, we can reasonably expect that it's going to stay that way in the future. So as we talk about principles, systems, and tools, those words will keep coming up, and it is by design part of the certification structure. So what is starting to develop for an individual is a path, bronze, silver, gold, as a path. It's a career path, which could be utilized by organizations to help grow people as they progress in their career path. From an organizational standpoint, it is a model, basically, that can be utilized to say, here's how we can put the organization and people on a path of sustainable success.
So I think you guys are all sort of saying that the body of knowledge, which is the framework for lean certification through the 3 levels, is really kind of like saying for certain responsibilities or job titles, et cetera, in the organization, puts a different focus on how they have to support that framework in order for us to make it sustainable, and also so that such that it's driving results. Have I got that right?
Good.
You know, leaders are looking at alignment, making sure we're all going down the same path. The silver level, those are the people sort of working across the organization, connecting systems, and then we make sure that we're also developing frontline capabilities with the right tools and the right problem-solving skills.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
Great. What I'd like to do now is maybe ask each of you to maybe chime in on this one. If we were thinking about investing in people development in our organization, you know, can you give us an example that you've seen of what some of the organizations have been able to achieve when they've really got the flames turned up on, you know, getting people skilled and practicing and working in a sustainable manner?
Well, I'll go first.
Thanks, Jeff.
In some of the time that I've spent with the larger organizations, they were, I think, some of the first to really embrace the lean certification and kind of embed this into their people development piece. So I worked with a company in the energy industry for several years, and on their lean journey progression, lean certification was something that popped up on their radar. And they took a very close look at some of the other supporting documentation that we have that describes the structure of the lean body of knowledge and you know, the certification. And they look specifically at the lean certification blueprint and some documents that we call the essential body of work and competency and behavior model. And they actually put this into their structure. They recognized that they wanted to enhance the capabilities of their people to coach and to develop people, get them out of a managerial kind of a project focused role and get them more into building capabilities of their people. So they latched onto this language that's in the lean certification. I think it really resonated with them. And they recognized that as they continue on their lean certification path and develop people as lean leaders, there's a strong coaching component. It builds on a lot of the things that they'd already built into the company to just around coaching and working with small teams and individuals, and even their system of evaluation was something that they aligned around the lean certification. So for them, they actually put the first steps of lean certification as an advancement requirement as you went from supervisor to manager inside their company in this one division. And it was very well aligned. Again, you know, looking as they did, like all companies, to not overspend in certain areas, they leveraged their existing training in coaching and people development, and actually align that to the work that people were doing to advance their lean careers and their capabilities. So, you know, with that, they're able to, in all the dimensions that they had been measuring people development, you know, do we have effective cross-training plans? How are we doing on our cultural assessments and the scores that we're trying to advance? Are we helping people feel engaged in their work? You know, having now an expanded responsibility to not just do the work, but improve the work, and having your leaders support you in doing that and building those capabilities, and doing that in a structured, comprehensive way. For everything that this company was trying to achieve to run a distributed, in their case, a distributed global enterprise with more ownership, with more local leadership. Everything that they were trying to do there was actually enhanced by their efforts in lean certification. So I think that, you know, the answer, Pat, I think for me that I've seen is there are so many dimensions where a company is trying to achieve better quality, more rapid delivery, lower production cost, more efficient operations in general. They're able to, in this one company's example, connect their efforts to develop people to all of those needles. And so they've drawn a very good connect the dots there. And I think it serves as a model for what companies in general are able to do.
Excellent. Larry or Joanne, do you have an example that you would like to cite of what organizations have achieved or how they've changed as a result?
So it really doesn't make a difference to the size of the organization. There are many from large to small that have, you know, taken this journey, and the ones that have accomplished the most are the ones that have actually locked in to really understand. So I'll give an example of a biotech company who, you know, their lead times were 100+ weeks, and their lead times 3 years, 4 years later are now 20 weeks. And yes, there's some low-hanging fruit and tools there, et cetera. But the sustainability and the alignment of the organization towards one goal and getting everyone so that you created an environment that they own their area, they could drive improvements in their area by using the tools and the concepts and understanding that, and hooking everything to one metric. So we all know in companies, we all have a ton of metrics, right? You had a standard 6-pack. I was in automotive, we had a standard 6-pack plus, you know, the other metrics. But when you have one true north, and in their instance, their true north is speed, because speed by far, when you look at it, you have to have quality, you have to be able to have people that are trained, you have to, all those other factors fall into place, because if you focus on speed and your costs go up, you know that you have a problem. Your quality goes up, you know you have a problem, you have to fix those things. So the tools that are enabling people to learn initially, because it's a journey, getting those tools out, but then obviously throughout the organization, getting people to learn more around the principles and how the system should work, so that as the company goes through its journey, it is allowing everyone to be able to learn. So we always say with lean, you know, E3, everyone, every day, everywhere, every day, right? That's what we want, not just one or two leaders going through, driving the organization on this. We want everyone to be able to say, yep, that's where we're trying to head to. We're going to go that way, and providing the organization to be able to do that.
Great. Larry, do you have an example you'd like to add?
Yeah, actually, my reference point comes more from multiple site visits of organizations challenging for Shingo Prize recognition. And so, as I said earlier, the Shingo Prize model is embedded in the certification process. And so it's actually pretty interesting, because many of those organizations From an organizational standpoint and from an individual standpoint, basically have done a good job of taking the model components as a reference and saying this is the way that individuals at various levels of the organization really should be doing their job. There's certainly a technical component of it, and there's this, how we do things component of it. It's kind of interesting. Certification is an individual, it's an individual certification. And many of these organizations have not designated that as an absolute outcome, right? Because if you designate that as an absolute outcome, that actually could divert your attention from what you really need to be doing, which is growing people, right? So there's an embedding. You can see within the organizations that there's an understanding of what people should be doing at a particular level of the organization as it relates to culture and creating sustainability, and then basically setting up the systems so that's a natural state, right? We allow people to interact. We allow people to influence the systems. We allow people to establish a set of principles that we're going to gauge all of our systems against. Do we demonstrate the 10 principles? So, as I say, in terms of frame of reference, that's my particular frame of reference. So you see the certification everywhere in these kinds of organizations that are challenging. And, it makes a significant difference in the performance of those organizations that have figured that out.
So I think Larry is saying when we have the skills backed up with the actual behaviors at the right levels, that's when you start to see acceleration.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent, great points. Okay, a couple more things, and we'll wrap up and go to Q&A. For panelists, for people in the audience who are contemplating certification either for themselves or for their organization, maybe Jeff, what's one piece of advice you might give them?
Oh, good question. I think as I reflect back on especially a lot of the portfolios that I've looked at, probably some of the best feedback that I've gotten on the quality of the certification system and what it is we're doing and what people are getting from it. We asked this question of what people have learned on their lean certification journey. We all learn things on our own personal lean journeys, but this specifically goes in and says, look at the certification process from the time that you applied, you read your books, and you took your exam, and then you looked over your portfolio of work and what it is that you were going to submit. What have you learned? And I think by far that's one of my favorite questions to look at as an examiner, as a reviewer. And I'd ask everybody who's considering challenging for lean certification themselves to kind of think about that as they begin their journey. What do you expect to learn? Where do you feel that you need to grow? What dimensions of your capabilities are you looking to expand? And target those deliberately. I think that the certification is an excellent opportunity to do that. I've had the pleasure of being associated with the lean certification since its early days. And I remember especially, during some of those early beta tests where we put together the first portfolios and then kind of ran that gauntlet for ourselves. I mean, I look back on the things that I had done as a young practitioner and as a junior consultant, and I was just, it was a real eye-opener. I think not only in terms of what my path and progression is, and we all have our heads tucked down and we're doing work, right? But the opportunity to just reflect carefully on that journey and what it's looked like, and to see these huge gaps that the certification standard, if you hold it up to yourself as a yardstick, what that shows. It certainly kind of challenges your humility, And but you know, that's where learning really begins. And I think if you're going to get the most out of the certification, to begin with a humble look at yourself, prompted by that question, um, what have you learned, or what do you expect to learn? I think that's one of my favorites.
Excellent. So Larry, let's go to the other side of that. If someone is going to challenge, what should they? What is a challenge they might be not expecting when they go to complete the certification, and what are some things they can do to overcome the challenge?
Well, the what Jeff just mentioned in terms of perspective of documentation, we've been able to look at you know, the what have you learned question, and what are your plans in terms of hurdles you have you've come across in terms of documenting projects and so on and so forth. So my general advice to everybody, regardless of whether it's an individual or organization, is to look at the documentation. There are blueprints for each of the levels. There's competency and behavior model. And from an individual standpoint, it gives you a chance to do what Jeff has mentioned, which is to say, what can I learn if I look at this? If I just do a little reflection, what could I learn? Because this is a model that was created by practitioners and validated, verified. So at the bronze level, this is the kind of thing that people that are good practitioners of lean sort of need to know. And there's certainly a tool relationship there. So it gives you an opportunity to do that reflection. From an organizational standpoint, if you look at the competency and behavior model, it is probably going to reflect what most organizations aspire for. Right? We want our leaders to have empathy. We want them to lead with humility. We want our lean practitioners to focus not only on implementation of a particular tool or technique, but we want to do it in a way, would like for them to do it in a way that they're showing respect for their fellow associates and so on and so forth. And so that from a hurdle standpoint, those are going to be where the hurdles are, right? And I can't, for any given individual, there may be knowledge, there may be tools and techniques that are going to be hurdles. I've never done a value stream map at the very fundamental level of it. And so I guess I need to go do something to learn how to do that, study, practice, and so on and so forth. And again, from an organizational standpoint, it's like, okay, let's just set out, this is the way that we would like to operate, and move forward from that. So to me, those are extremely valuable documents. And somewhere embedded in those documents, there's going to be plenty of challenges for an individual to look at.
That's great, Larry. And for those who are on the webinar, those documents he's referring to, you can get off the sme.org/training/lean certification pages. They're all there for you to download. Joanna, I'll let you wrap us up with the formal question part with this one. So what's one thing you would ask organizations and individuals to reflect upon to determine if they're really developing their team in a way that's helping people to create value for customers and value for the employees?
So there are two things that come to mind when I do that. One, if you're a leader, whether it's a team leader or a departmental leader, or, you know, in a lot of companies today, functional leader, because whether or not it's a value stream or not, is ask yourself the question, if you were to leave tomorrow, what would happen? Because that's a really, really important thing. If you were to leave tomorrow, people would be lost and it wouldn't continue forward. Then you have a problem. It means that you haven't developed the organization or the people around you to be able to sustain what they're going. They may struggle, and that's okay, but they have to be able to continue forward. It cannot change just because you left and you were the driving person. So that's, from a leader perspective, is the number one. And how do you develop your organization so that they are learning and they are comfortable to be able to do all of that? a perspective of whether or not you're in an organization and you're looking around the team is, what did I learn from today? What did I learn from the processes I did today? If I came in, my head was down and that's all I did, and I did the tasks and I left, then I'm not getting the support to develop as an individual. And why is that? So how do you look at those things? Because it is easy. And Jeff, I was laughing because I was thinking about this as I was going through my AR. It's like, you get down this path and you've done so much in your life and you haven't reflected on it. And doing that along the way, whether or not you're just starting off into working or you've been at it for 10 years, is just reflect a little bit, is what am I doing? What am I growing? What am I learning? Because if you can do that, you'd be surprised at how much you find out. But number two is, if you use the certification to help you as a guideline because you want to continue to learn more about lean and the impact to businesses and what it means, whether or not you run your own business or work for another company, is reflection is really important. Because when you take the time to reflect, you'll all of a sudden realize that for the last 9 months, you've been head down and you didn't take a moment to think about, wow, I've done that 3 times. What have I done differently in order to change it so next time something different happens, right? Or who can I go see to learn from? Or who has that knowledge that I was not aware of that would help me be able to problem solve and do this a whole lot better in the future? So those are 2 things that came to my mind.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay, so it's almost 2:20, so I would like to now turn this over to Q&A for the people who've taken their time to join us today. Thank you to our great panelists for your insights, but now I'd like to let the folks who've joined us ask their questions. We'll open it up to questions. Who's going to start us off?
Don't forget to come off mute.
That's true. Unmute yourself.
Let me try. There's a lot of issues that over the years I've heard about lean certification, and we don't discuss them that much. One is it a true standard? There's hundreds and hundreds of organizations giving lean certifications. There's no purity test for those things. And it doesn't seem that we've gotten through with our marketing or our messaging to make the lean certification of SME, Shingo, and AME be the world leader. What can we do to give it some backbone to make sure that people recognize what a lean certification from SME, AME, and Shingo is versus one of the hundreds that are out there on the street?
So I'll take a stab at that real quickly. So if you go back and take a look at the certification and when this was developed and people that were interested with it, and then you saw a downturn. When you saw a downturn, if you remember about 5 years ago or so, there was a huge influx of all these individuals in different universities and companies that were coming out with certification, whether it was Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma, or Lean. And so that really started to muddy the water. A few years ago, we started to redesign the program in order to really take into the effect of how do we close the gap and where we are. We finished that last year and we're launching. So now what we did was that whole discussion around certification versus certificate versus everything else that was out there. We have now started to build what is that understanding, and we're redoing the websites. We're starting to get the marketing behind it. So this year, our focus really is to try and get that out there to be able to do some differentiation between people, provide the tools to just awareness and communication. Because until I came on the COA, the certification had been going on for 8 years or so, and I knew nothing about it prior to that. So how do we get in, especially in the organizations that we do have influence over, right? Because we're 4 major organizations that are playing together, get it out there so that we can spread and start to get the word.
Yep, I'll add to that. I think that in the first of all, there are, as you say, Art, a lot of different Lean certifications and Lean Six Sigma certifications that are out there. And if you go to take a look at the details of what it is that they're offering, what I've seen is that across the board, it looks like the majority of them are, and come buy this from us. And when you buy it from us, then we'll tell you what's included in all the details. And it's proprietary. What we've got out there, and we've referred to this on this call several times, it's essentially like open source. The lean body of knowledge, it's out there. You know what the full comprehensive scope of this is, and what is included at the bronze, silver, and gold levels by proportion. So we've consciously designed it in a very specific way. We've made it rigorous, and you also know fully what's covered by it. I think that's a great incentive to individual consultants, to universities, to companies, to embrace this and to see, you know, this is how this connects in with the things that we offer as an organization. So I think part of the struggle with lean certifications in general is just that proprietary, I've got a secret sauce, I've got a little curriculum that I've whittled myself, and it's why there's so many also RANds that I think kind of confuse the landscape. I honestly think what we've put together, it's rigorous, it's well designed. We've gone to some of the best minds that we know in developing university courses and defensible certification systems. And I think what we have is something that is very inviting to people to kind of not in addition to, but to bolt on and to actually integrate in with the things that they already have and that they do well.
Yeah, and reaching out there is important, right? Just awareness, increasing awareness that it exists is going to be very important.
I would just add that
So Art, we don't have a, sorry, one second. Art, we don't have a secret sauce that this is going to turn tomorrow. We're very, very aware of that, but we are very conscious about how we're going out and getting information out to people and getting people aligned with our certification. And again, if you remember 2 years ago, we went through the huge discussion of Six Sigma and Lean, you know, and really getting people to understand those will always exist. And we're not competing against Six Sigma. It's a body that's there, that's required, especially if you're doing DOAs, et cetera. But there's a crossover to the Lean part too. So we're trying to take that on and get people out there to understand that what we have is not only book knowledge, but it also takes you through the experiential, and that's the important part. You want to be able to go out there and make change.
I was just going to say,
that the Lean Six Sigma world is usually warmed over Six Sigma with a Lean attached to it.
Yep.
And they don't have much Lean background, but the people out there are completely misunderstanding, especially like the U.S. military, that they use Lean Six Sigma, and it confuses the hell out of everybody. They don't understand what Lean really is, and they talk about the yellow belts, I mean the green belts, the black belts, and they had the whole Six Sigma language and structure, but they put a Lean in front of it to give it some,
Yep.
I don't know what.
Add a few tools. Yeah, we are aware of that. And we're just going to have to constantly, the more people we can communicate to, the more people that are aware, the more we can get influences out there.
Art, I just say there's two other things that Joanne sort of alluded to. One of them is that even amongst our own support, the three affiliates, AME, Shingo, and SME, working more closely with them to have a common voice about this certification, and that it is based on primarily Shingo, but not outside of the realm of Toyota Production System, that it is, you know, grounded in true continuous improvement thinking. And the second thing is just now starting to build in more supporting organizations who are beyond the journey with us, either to offer the prep class or whatever else, but doing things specifically to make sure that they're vetted and they're going to represent this as it should be, and, you know, not turn it into something that it isn't. Thanks. That was a great question, and one of a great concern to all of us.
Okay, well, I got one more and then I'll keep
Excellent. Go.
The other complaint I've heard over the years has been on the portfolio. I know it's evolved and we've done some refining and streamlining and things like that, but I get a lot of complaints about it being very subjective and not objective, that two different people see the same portfolio, one rates it A and the other says it's no good. And I don't think we have a process for rating the people that evaluate portfolios. I don't know how we get more standard in that, but I did an experiment around 6 or 7 years ago, sent the same portfolio to 4 different examiners. I had one gave it an A, 2 Bs, and 1 F. And I think the rules, and I don't know if they're still the same, was whoever rated you on your portfolio when you resubmitted, he was the one who had to rate you again. So if he gave you an F and there was a guy who would give you an A, there's no chance you get the guy with the F again.
So I'll address that a little bit. So we've spent quite a bit of time. It's very funny because we did it as a team, and it's about your viewpoint. So you've got to remember that the guys that are rated in portfolios could be from bronze, silver, or gold. And what was interesting was when we read the portfolio, when you're having a bronze portfolio, you need to see it from a bronze viewpoint. And it was really funny how many of us didn't see it, just we read it. And if you were a gold, you looked at it from the viewpoint of what you would expect. And so we spent quite a bit of time around how do we frame that so that when someone's looking at it, the framework is, it is a bronze portfolio being looked at the bronze level. You have to wear the lens of that when you do it. And when that happened, everybody honed right in. So that was interesting part. So we've developed the processes around how do we, as more bronze people come on, give them that ability to have that framework. So we've seen an improvement in the scores that are happening. Our process is such that 2 people review and they speak with each other as well. So you don't get 2 different scores back. You get a comprehensive score of people reviewing back. So there are some things that we're working on to make it more streamlined so that the MSAs are a lot better off.
Thank you.
Who else has got a question out there or a comment?
This is Greg Stewart. What comment I have is earlier in your discussion, some of you know me a little bit, some of you don't know me at all, most likely. I think there's probably been, in the last 5 years, maybe half a dozen online discussions about this topic, and that makes this discussion very valuable because I don't think there's anything like this that has been done lately. But one thing in terms of lean leadership, one should remember, one thing I came to this certification already as a corporate Six Sigma black belt prior to the time of Lean Six Sigma. So I was kind of looking to add that to my portfolio, if you will. But one thing I remember about for any change management scheme, you have to have senior level or upper level management involved and supporting. And that is what, to your discussion about human resources, if you called up the Fortune 500, how many folks in that group would even acknowledge that this exists?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's a very small number.
Yep.
Without even having to do the survey, which would, the only scientific way of supporting what I'm saying. But essentially, Hank Cernick, he's not here. I would like to see him here. I'd like to see someone from SME here. But as ASQ was previously involved in this and really left without much of a whimper. So to that standpoint is who is helping human resources and upper management understand that they need to even do this. And so often folks like the tools because the tools, require very little commitment as an organization to implement. It's much more of a burden to implement this in terms of culture. In fact, I'll just throw this out, I talked about a number of things, but folks I've often heard say lean is essentially a reflection of the Toyota Motor Company's culture. And, that's where it begins and ends. I mean, if you can't find it in Toyota, it doesn't really exist as lean. But in Jeffrey Liker and the folks like that who made us aware of Toyota Motor Company. But how many organizations in the United States have any, just take respect for people, have any intention of pursuing that in the way that lean says you should? Okay, I'll stop at this point.
So
No passion there at all, none at all.
No, and that's fine. The passion is fabulous. So we do have funnily enough, we do have an ad hoc group this year. One of the things that we identified was, as we look forward to expand, And there are two areas that we're looking at. One is the feeder streams, so universities and schools, et cetera. So how do you start developing that knowledge before they get out in the working world? But the other part is exactly what you said, is how do you get in front of HR and the leadership and show that from a leadership perspective, this is required skill set at that level. So we're starting to build what that looks like to take to them to be able to offer that. So, and I know Jeff's been working on a package where he's actually working with companies to try and teach them these things and have them discover the importance of it. So there are things going on, not as fast as we wish, but we do have focused effort on that.
Greg, thanks for the question. I think one other thing that I might add would be, well, a couple of things. One is just an observation that as we look at the progression of Six Sigma, there were some companies, that we all know of, like Motorola and GE, that were, I think, very pivotal in being able to broaden the adoption of those methods. I think that for being able to kind of get a specific approach out in the mainstream, having a proponent organization of that magnitude is certainly an accelerant. But there are, I think, some important inroads that we're making in not just continuing to advance the lean certification among individuals, but also to help organizations of all sizes to really appreciate the value and to have that adoption of the certification standard. One of the things that I think we see with especially some of the input from folks like the Shingo Institute and from AME, with AME, the prominence of people-centric leadership, the AME Excellence Award with the design of the Shingo model. You see, in addition to Toyota as an exemplar, obviously, of the Toyota production system and the Toyota way, they get all the billing, they get all the prominent kudos. And yeah, lean, I think, does, of course, have that strong heritage. And that's a benefit, but it's also a little bit of a millstone around your neck sometimes, because everybody's goes back to that example. But there are so many others, the Danahers of the world and so on, who have their own models that they have really put some attention into. And in the end, it looks very similar to the Toyota production system, that's true. But lean, I think, more generically, has some very consistent components and some very consistent elements. And in addition to Toyota, I think it also deserves, highlighting some of those other companies that do excellent work and really have developed very thoughtful systems of their own. And the lean body of knowledge and the lean model that that's at the center of the lean certification is really very open, and it embraces all of those. And it's something that I think we need to take full advantage of in the community of practitioners. There's the Toyota examples, and then there's these others that are also very formidable. And the lean certification really is open to all of those.
Somebody have another question?
Just a comment about Lean Six Sigma and Six Sigma in general. You mentioned Motorola and GE, and that was their religion. But I remember around 10 years ago, Pat Cardwell and I went to a local GE plant to set up a meeting for the Champions Club. We went in there, and GE in general was still talking Six Sigma. In that plant, all they had was lean. They had no Six Sigma at all. They had eliminated it. But those things don't go out. There's no messaging on that. It's, you think GE and you think Six Sigma. You don't realize that they're doing a lot of lean and a lot of good lean too.
Very true, Art. I mean, they haven't walked back anything in terms of their embrace of Six Sigma, but I've heard the same thing from other folks that have been to GE facilities. It's, I think when you take a look at the outline that it's taken, it has a lot of lean that is baked into it, and it's not always very prominently described. It's a good point.
Okay, who else has a question or a comment?
Just on the Six Sigma discussion, because so often I think in these materials, SME wants to make this as a purely lean certification. In other words, that there are practitioners out there who are doing Lean Six Sigma or doing lean in association with Six Sigma. Because anytime you do a cycle time reduction, you know, that is clearly lean work. You know, anything an industrial engineer does to make things more efficient. You know, when I took in my first industrial engineering courses, the word lean wasn't even out there in the textbook. So, but I think one of the powers of lean, which I think needs to be made a little bit more prominent, is a Six Sigma project can take 6 months to a year to accomplish. And there's a large investment in terms of creating that work, not the least of which is a full-time practitioner who's running the project. And in that respect, that lean can be done much more economically. In fact, I think the portfolio is not lean. And I don't want to step on folks' toes because there's a lot of people who have pride in what's been developed there, but essentially, you know, rapid implementation can be done in days, or in Paul Akers' terms, 2 seconds. You know, 2-second lean. And that, I think Paul doesn't embrace lean quite the way everyone might have him do so. But because he just says, well, I've asked him, well, do you document what you've done? Do you see that you do 2-second lean over and over again? You know, I mean, if it's, you solve the problem on Monday, do you see the problem again on Thursday? I think that's the risk in terms of running lean that loose. But in essence, here's the thing is that lean is something any organization can do, where Six Sigma is very limited in terms of organizations that can afford to have, you know, can afford to pay someone to run that project for them. And I'll stop and see if anyone has a comment to that.
Oh, come on, this panel, somebody's got to have a response to that.
I'll throw out.
I think I have a little bit of one.
That was you, Rachel.
Yeah,
It is.
Rachel?
Hi.
Hi.
I've been
Hi,
kind of
Rachel.
stealth in the background.
Yeah, I saw that.
I totally understand what you're saying, and I somewhat disagree. I think that there are instances where the Six Sigma methodology can be run through very quickly and very rapidly. If you have data available and you have a process that cycles quickly, you can run through that process very, very quickly. And I think that, you know, yes, lean can be done much more economically and can be, it traditionally tends to happen a little bit faster. I disagree that it can be done without having the right people on staff, because to do lean right, it's a huge cultural shift that needs leadership and needs some full-time dedication.
You cut out on us, Rachel. Hopefully you'll drop back in. We're frozen in time.
Yeah, I guess I question, you know, lean is designed to be done much more rapidly. Six Sigma, 3 and 4 months is a very commonly referenced time frame, and that is if you're really doing it well. So
I would just point out though that lean is not done quickly if you're in it for the long term. You can do an event quickly, or you can do a problem solving exercise quickly, but if you're going to align your systems and align principles and strategy and get long-term results, it's not going to happen in 6 months. And that has actually been one of the concerns for Lean, I think, in some applications, that if you don't get bottom line results in 3 months, it can't be any good. But when you're trying to change culture,
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
I think I'm referencing a Kaizen event, for the bronze certification.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think if you're going to go silver or gold, I can understand exactly what you're saying. So, but if you're talking about, bronze is supposed to be entry level. That means it shouldn't be. It should actually be more quantifiable in terms of the effort. Standard work for the portfolio should be better developed. And I think Hank and Larry have spent some time trying to explain that to those who are interested. So, in essence, I'm not here to criticize, but I'm involved. It's not going to change for me. You've already gone down 40% in the number of pages of portfolio that's required, and that's great. When I really feel sorry for the people that had to do 5, but 3 is a much more manageable number. Exactly. I'm sure you did, Jeff.
Times 3.
But I mean, people, folks, the CQE for ASQ has been around for, half a century, and so there are people who can talk about their war stories from, the 60s when they took the CQE for the first time. So you've got a little ways to go in terms of having that rich of a culture. There's a lot of rivalry within CQE. So, I did it when it was much more difficult, that type of thing. But, like I said, from my point of view is, this is, again, it's an entry-level certification. It ought not to be something where somebody has to devote a full-time job to getting this work done. So, that's just a challenge I have. I know there's been a lot done, and again, SME owns those processes. You folks can influence it better than I can, because you're still within the alliance, as it were. But SME needs to decide, hey, we're not generating enough practitioners. They know what their numbers are. I'm sure there was folks that were put together in a group and said, okay, what are we going to do to make SMEs Six Sigma certification, or excuse me, Lean certification, more competitive in some way.
Yep, and that's what the COA is there for. The COAs really help make sure that our processes and our systems are driving the right behaviors out there and are adjusting from what we're learning. So, this is a journey. Like Lean is always a journey. So the purpose of the group is really to take the data that we're seeing that's out there and adjust our processes and systems accordingly to get better, evolution. And that's what we're looking for. So feedback's always good for us.
Yeah, this is Michael. I'd like to ask a question to some of the folks we haven't heard from. So I see SVA Corp, Chris Sherwood, Rajdeep, Rob. You guys have listened to this. Are you already participating in the certification program, or are you trying to make a decision whether you're going to do it? Let's hear from somebody we haven't heard from.
Yeah. You guys are on mute. There you go. Rob's off mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we are performing it at our plant right now. So we, about every 6 months, we have a class, plant-wide, open it up to the plant. It's basically a voluntary program for people that are interested in developing themselves. We kind of team up with training and HR on that. But it's we call it a Lean, kind of a white belt training. It's just a 1-day, 8-hour course with a test at the end, just to give everybody some awareness so they can take it back to their lines and, and look for ways to improve their processes. We do a week-long training, but we haven't held one of those in a while with the full certification. But we are just looking to generate awareness at the plant, all the way down to the operator level.
Okay. Good.
Who are you with, Rob, if I may ask? What company?
Mallinckrodt Pharmaceutical.
Okay.
Oh,
thank
okay.
you.
So with it being a union environment, it's a little bit more challenging, but we get quite a few people interested in going through the classes.
I worked in automotive, just to let you know, I worked in automotive for 20 years, and we did some amazing stuff with the automotive unions over that time. So it is very, very doable. It's just about getting them to see the value, and they'll see it because it's pretty easy once they make the swing.
I have to agree with that because I went the same route, and I worked at Goodyear, and we had an amazing, Michael can also attest to that. A Goodyear union plant has received the award last year, and that was an unbelievable turnaround. It was like the least likely plant that I've known to achieve this, and the place has turned, it's fabulous. So,
Yep, very much so.
Anyone else out there who hasn't commented could share with us kind of what the nature of your interest is today, or what you're doing with this program or thinking about doing?
For Sherwood. For me, is just kind of checking it out, the lean certification. My company I work for is True Manufacturing, and we're just really in our baby steps as far as trying to get into our lean journey. Just been working on it for a couple years, and they made this position that I'm in now as far as the face of it for us to go out and work with the team members, work with the leadership, try to get everyone a little bit educated on some of these lean techniques and understanding it so they can start bringing it to the factory floor. So I was just kind of looking into this to see what kind of value it would help me with as far as my position and how I could use it to, you know, go out there and educate the rest of the company.
So Chris, I think, because I was playing around before on the internet, I think one of the things your company advertises is innovation, is it not?
Yeah. So as far as we do commercial refrigerators and freezers, we do some residential now also, fairly new to that. But yeah, we have a lot of innovative things that, you know, we've got patents on as far as trying to stay ahead of the game, energy efficiency, and just trying to be as green as possible as a refrigeration company in general. So it's one of our main things that we try to have as a selling point.
Well, this just adds in. I was just giving you a little point, as you said, you're looking for how do you go out there and make that connection with them. In order to do innovation, you need speed, because you need the cycles of learning quicker and faster. And one of the things with the lean processes, et cetera, is it drives that cycle of continuous improvement faster so that you can do quicker learning throughout. So getting them to see the connection of those, I think that will help the organization see not only the value, but also get greater participation.
Gotcha.
Well, maybe Jeff is on here. Jeff was our lead assessor at Goodyear at the Innovation Center, where we got the award, the AME Excellence Award, for an innovation center that does nothing but innovation. There wasn't even any manufacturing or anything done in it. And I'm here to tell you the principles are the same, Jeff, right?
Absolutely, they are, Nobra. The deep look that I and my team were able to have was really impressive. We found that you know, when you talk about lean from the perspective of being a method of learning and adaptation, you know, it was clear that that was the culture all through the organization. And at all levels, you saw people doing things large and small, local and global, that were all around innovation. Everybody was, it was like one hive mind. It was really impressive. And to see them thinking not only about the individual work that they're doing, but how they logically connect to other people upstream and downstream in the work that they do. and developing that system together and how that rolls up. It was just very impressive when we talk about what Lean can actually do in an innovative knowledge-based organization. That was really exemplary. It was very good.
That also answers a lot of the questions that I've heard about the certification. This certification would totally work in a plant. It would also work in an innovation center. It would work in a hospital. It would work in many other places. The question is not about Six Sigma or Lean or something else. The question is about making that organization better. And that's what it's all about. And there are many different tools that you bring in for that. And that's what it's all about. And the only thing that I learned through this whole process was the people part. I was not aware how important that was. And if you want to do something good for yourself, make sure you tie in the people. And that's my whole take on this whole thing. So sorry, Pat, I wasn't supposed to talk, but.
Oh, no, that's great. It's perfect. No, everybody's been really good. I'm happy to have your input.
Amen.
Do we have one more question maybe? Or one more comment?
I want to, at the very least, since I've contributed a little bit, want to thank the panel. Like I said, I want to encourage, I think it'd be great if you could come out and say you were going to do this again, you know, and maybe build upon this. I think, you know, 10 people in a net meeting is a pretty modest start, but certainly I think that's the way you have to look at this, is there just is not enough discussion out there on the web about this opportunity. And I've done my own research to be able to say that. So, but I want to thank you, because I was actually, that meeting was recommended to me by somebody else who's in my LinkedIn group and on my LinkedIn network. And also there is a support group for this certification on LinkedIn, and it hasn't had any activity in the last year. So do with that what you will.
Well, what we would hope is, I'm sure we're happy to commit to doing more of these going forward. We've already been talking to AME about something in the future. And I guess what I would hope is maybe you guys would tell, if you see this come up again, recommend it to someone else and say, it is worth taking a listen to. And, you know, you're absolutely right. That's really what we're trying to do, is get the message out there and try to get people to understand that we want to be in alignment. We don't want to have people going in a lot of different directions, because we feel there's value in having a true understanding of Lean and having people practicing the right things the right way. The one thing that sticks with me in all my many years of Lean and working with other people is hearing that as a leader, your number one responsibility is to develop people. But it isn't just about developing them any old way. It's about developing them to inspire and encourage and lead others in making improvements to drive the business to wherever we need to drive the business to. So that's really, I think, the people on this panel, you know, they're passionate about these kinds of things. So they'll talk to you as much as you want about it, but we got to have some people to talk to. So any last questions, comments from any of you? Well, all right, then I would say thank you to our panelists also, and thank you all for taking the time to join us today. I hope there was some small takeaway and some value for each of you. And as I mentioned, please go to the website, www.sme.org/training/lean-certification. There's lots of info. All the documents Larry referenced are out there, competencies and behaviors, portfolio documents, anything you need to see out there. You can take short tests to see if you're prepared for some of these, try to understand the difference between the levels. So, and if you can't, I think you know where to find us now. And as I said, we're all available. As you all know, people in this community are very passionate and very willing to help each other. So
you're welcome to email us at any point in time. We will respond.
Yes, we will.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.